Well, welcome back to another session of Confident Parenting. Jim and I are thrilled that you returned. We're thrilled that you're working on being a more confident parent as we are. We've got a lot to talk about, and in this session, we're talking about discipline.
Discipline. I mean, being consistent with discipline and grace in any home is a huge challenge. And we want to be liked by our kids. And so sometimes we don't have consistent discipline because we want to be liked by them. Or perhaps our own parents, well, they demonstrated discipline through what we call shame-based parenting. I mean, they tried to shame us into doing it right. Well, how did that work? Well, maybe for a moment, but shame-based parenting is most of the time short-lived. Rigid parenting causes kids to rebel. Too lenient of parenting causes kids to not have a path or a goal. Well, our job with discipline and grace is not to raise obedient children, but rather to become responsible adults, and I would add, who love God. Well, we have to figure out how to correct behavior without crushing their character. I love this old proverb that says, "He who is carried on another person's back does not appreciate how far the town is." So we need discipline. We've got to help our kids discipline. We can't do it for them. This means we have to get the monkey off of our back and transfer it to our kids so that they'll be responsible and become responsible. That's part of the discipline and the grace that we show. They'll need to fail in order to learn how to succeed. If you're married, we have to be on the same approach if we can possibly do that. I love the phrase, united we stand, divided we fall mentality when it comes to discipline. Well, confident parenting is developing a strategy for parenting that you both can get behind, and most of all, as parents, we have to lead with consistency, love, purpose, and authority. And notice that I said the word lead. Well, guess who leads our lives like that? God. He's our example of leading His children with discipline, yes, and there are consequences to our poor behavior, but He also leads with a great amount of grace and a great amount of blessing.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I've made, I know other parents have made when it comes to discipline, is that we view it as punishment instead of guidance. And as odd as it sounds, kids really want and they need rules and discipline. They provide a sense of security and a sense of safety for them. You know, kids are not thinking that if I had no rules or guidance, boy, I would be free. No, that's not what they're thinking. See, thoughtful discipline and guidance, it communicates love. As the scriptures say, "My child, don't reject the Lord's discipline and don't be upset when He corrects you. For the Lord corrects those He loves, just as a father corrects a child in whom He delights." You see, Jim, when I see a child who isn't disciplined or some kid that's just totally out of control, I don't think, oh, that kid is just awful. I think, what's the deal with the parents? Where are you, parents? Where's the love? See, as you think about discipline, I would encourage you to think about what I call delicate discipline. It's meaning this: discipline must be done, but it must be done with caution, because bodies are fragile and spirits are even more fragile. So parents, don't discipline in anger. Angry discipline, it results in embarrassment, humiliation, violence. It actually produces angry kids. So when you're screaming and yelling at them, they don't hear your words. They actually hear your spirit. And see, when they see you lose control, they're ultimately going to lose respect. See, discipline in anger, it doesn't work. Please hear this. Yelling doesn't work. When your kids are young, yelling might get them to stop doing something for a minute, but yelling is not a good long-term solution. I'll tell you what else doesn't work. It's that counting game that some of you parents play. You know the counting game that I'm talking about. If you don't, just go to any McDonald's Playland. It goes something like this. "Johnny, do not let me get to 3. 1, 2, 3. Maybe, Johnny, you didn't hear me. Don't let me count it. 1, 2. I'm serious this time, Johnny. You don't want to experience my fury if I get to 3. 1, 2, 2.3. You know, you start inventing fractions. Parents, the only way this works is if you allow the child to experience the consequence of discipline at 3 in a loving way. So bottom line is this: love and discipline go together. You can't have love if you don't have discipline. And that's why building a loving relationship is so important, because rules without a loving relationship, it's eventually going to lead to rebellion. So as parents, we must work hard on that whole parent-child loving relationship. And Jim, as you know, this is going to require listening. It's going to require caring and guidance, guidance with appropriate discipline. It's battling what comes naturally, because what comes naturally is I want to yell or scream, and to not do what comes naturally, not nagging. That doesn't work any better than yelling. And as parents, what we've got to do is we've got to realize that we shouldn't battle everything. See, no kid, no one, not forget kids, no one person wants to live in a house of constant battles. So we've got to pick our battles wisely. Then we stand firm on the big ones, the ones where expectations have been made clear, and those are the ones that you want to battle, and those are the ones you want to win. But you don't want to battle everything, because it's just not worth losing your relationship over. And by the way, in the midst of discipline and expectations and consequences, let me just remind you, you won't be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Jim and I have made plenty of mistakes. Jim's made a lot more than me. But all parents make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, confess them to your child. And then figure out how you need to change. And by doing that, you're going to deepen your trust and deepen your relationship. And you're actually going to model appropriate and helpful behavior to your child.
Boy, that is so good. And if we could only do that, our kids would actually be better off. But we tend to go back to the yelling, or we tend to go back to nagging. And sometimes that's because that's where we came from.
Yeah.
Another reason why is because we sometimes don't understand what we call the stages of parenting and how that affects discipline. I want to go through this with you quickly. Now, you have ages of kids that are probably at different levels. But, you know, at stage 1, you're really in what we call the catering stage. That's from birth to 2 years old. Basically, you do everything for your kid. If your kid cries, you pick them up. If your kid is, hungry, you feed the kid. If your kid goes to the bathroom, you change the diapers. But we quickly have to move to another stage, and it's about age 2 to 10. And let me tell you this, control freaks love this stage. For discipline, they love this stage for parenting because it's called controlling. You're micromanaging, I think in the best sense, your child's life and to try to keep your child safe. But at the same time, you're moving them from dependence to independence. So at about age 10 to 15, and this is especially true with discipline, you have to move to coaching. What that means is you let your child start making more decisions. It's not an easy season if you're still in the role of a controller, and a lot of controllers don't want to move to that stage. But your kids have to learn. Now, coaching doesn't mean that you give up on parenting. Coaching means that now you're coming alongside them. Coaches have boundaries. Coaches deal with issues. Coaches sometimes put kids on restriction. But again, what you're trying to do is move them from dependence to independent. Why? So that they can become responsible adults. Now, stage 4 is consulting, and that's at about age 15. You're kind of going through 15 to young adulthood. And by this time, you allow your child to make most of his or her own choices. But you are there for support and counsel. Now, again, this doesn't mean that if they're out of control that you just totally let them be out of control, but it's, again, a time of helping them transition toward adulthood, because that's what you're really after, becoming a responsible adult. Then stage 5, and actually that's where I am in my life right now. It's called caring. And my day-to-day job as a parent is done. I'm still the parent, and now I'm a mentor. I'm there to encourage. I'm there to cheer them on. I'm there if they want to get information from me or even my suggestions, but my day-to-day part is done. And if I've done it right from when they were younger, they're now responsible adults. And that's really what we're trying to move. That's the vision for discipline and grace. And it takes a lot of work on our part to do that.
Yeah. Well, in all those stages you were talking about, Jim, none of those are easy stages. They all have their transitions and difficulties. And really no one said parenting would be easy. And both Jim and I agree that parenting, while it may not be easy, it is one of the most rewarding aspects of our life. And yet much of parenting, we parented with a little bit of fear and trepidation. And you just got to know this, that parents who develop a plan and a purpose can become confident parents. That's what this whole series has been about. Remember, the bottom line in parenting is not that you raise obedient kids, but rather that you would raise responsible young adults. And we would add and have added responsible young adults who love Jesus.
Yes, and that's the goal. And it's hard when you're in the midst of it to see that as the goal, but in the end, they will return, is what part of a proverb says, and that's important for parents to remember, especially when we're in the discipline mode when our kids aren't really liking us at that point, when they get a little bit older. Now, we suggest that you keep on learning and growing. Parenting isn't just one class, and it's surely not a book, and it's not just one small group. We want to challenge you to read at least one marriage book and actually one parenting book each year. We do it for our businesses. Why not do it for our families? And just like physical bodies, we need to keep our parenting in shape, and most of all, keep on learning. We need others to help us and challenge us and to inspire us so we don't parent alone. That's why we believe so strongly in being in community as we raise our family. Well, the bottom line is that we are building a legacy that will last beyond our lifetime with our family. Well, I want to say this. If there's anything that we can do at Homeward to come alongside you, don't hesitate to contact us through our website, homeward.com, other content resources. We are all in it together, and we are so privileged that you have gone through this series with us. Blessings.
Indeed. Thank you so much for being a part of this series. We hope that in the ideas and the tips and the thoughts that we've shared, that you will be a confident parent.